On the line with me right now, Will Calhoun from Living Colour. Will, thanks for taking the time to talk to me today.
It's fantastic. Thank you for calling.
No problems at all. Tell me about when you first started playing drums, Will. I'm the father of a drummer, so I always like to know.
I started at 16. I started quite late, actually. And I began playing 2 records and playing with my older brother played, so it was a bit intimidating, and I had guys in my community like Steve Jordan and some other tremendous drummers, Leroy Cloud, and these other guys that were kind of already on radio when they were 17 or 18 years old. They were already playing professionally. So it was inspiring to see that at a very young age, and also a bit intimidating at times. But eventually I jumped on the bandwagon, and just being surrounded by a lot of great talent, my brother included, and neighborhood, great musicians in this neighborhood in the Bronx, I was cultivated and really well tutored. So that's really where it began. And I just loved everything. I played in church. I played in talent shows, played with, and my mom opened the basement up to the community, our basement apartment. We had a 2-family house, and the ground floor was basically used for our mates. So everyone left their gear at our house, and I was able to just come home sometimes and hear organ trios and funk bands and fusion bands and salsa bands and merengue bands and Haitian music and so many different things that eventually I just decided, well, I'll jump on a kit and start noodling. And that's the beginning process for me.
Yeah, okay. Now, you've been with Living Colour since the very early days. What do you remember about those times?
Well, green, being a bit green, being totally hyped about wanting to make a change, being in a very fertile artistic environment in New York at that time. We're talking mid-'80s to late 80s, and Spike Lee was becoming the Spike Lee that we know, and rap artists, guys that we grew up with in the community. Rap music did not have a forum, a how can I put it? Basically a real forum to present their music. Rap was presented in parks in our community and at parties, etc. It became an industry. So a lot of our friends with the skills of rapping now had record deals, and they were touring. So you had that scene. You had a great art scene in New York, punk music, CBGBs, metal, and the grunge thing wasn't there yet, but the metal music was becoming popular. Graffiti was becoming art. You know, you had Basquiat here. You had Keith Haring, and all of these interesting things happening around the same time. There was this culture mix with Latin music and African American music and poetry readings, and so I think it was like a Renaissance period in New York. So that was what the time was like. So Living Colour just fit kind of right in. We didn't look and sound like the average black band, and here we were playing in CBGB's punk music, but we were covering Sly Stone and Bad Brains and Led Zeppelin and James Brown, as well as playing our own music. And basically the walls were down, in my opinion. You know, we were able to just cross into other artistic yards and be who we really are. And that was a great time. It was a great environment for us. Thank God CBGB's was in existence, and that was our home court advantage, and that's where we played most of the time. And that was the beginning of what became Living Colour that we know now.
Yeah. Now, I remember here, way on the other side of the world, seeing you guys like burst out of the TV, MTV Australia, I think it was. Were you just at the right time, do you think it was?
That's a combination of things. The timing was right. Rock and roll was back. We had Guns N' Roses. We had all those other rock bands that were signed to deals and doing tours. Yes, timing had something to do with it. I think our uniqueness had something to do with it. I think Living Colour as a concept was long overdue, because we had Buddy Miles, Jimi Hendrix's dad, Al Hendrix, Tina Turner, and even not only black artists, but the Rolling Stones. There were people who were coming to us, Little Richard, telling us the importance of what we were doing. So I think it was a sign of the times, but it was also a spiritual sign. And with the things I mentioned earlier, with the Spike and the Basquiats and so on, it was their time as well. So there was an artistical time for us. And MTV, of course, thanks to Michael Jackson, we were able to get on MTV. And his demand for black artists to be shown that was a profound action that helped us probably. I don't know. I'm sure it was a different situation in Australia, but here, MTV didn't play black artists when it started for quite some time, and that all changed. But there's all of those concepts. I think it was a combination. It was a combination meal that made it, I think, artistically ripe for Living Color to come on the scene.
Yeah. Okay. Now we'll skip forward. In between the chair in the doorway and Shade, you've got 8 years. Now, bands these days, they're releasing albums further apart than when I was a lad. But do you think 8 years is a bit long?
No, I think 8 years is too long. I don't think it's a bit long. I think it's way too long. But, you know, it is what was happening with us and getting back together, kind of not everybody being on the same page. I mean, there's emotional residue involved in that 8-year time. But yes, it's too long in between, records by all means. But when I look at what happened to the band, what was happening to the band at that time, 8 years is fitting.
Now, that album seemed to, eternally be delayed. Were you happy with the way it came out?
I am very happy with the way it came out, and I'm very happy that it was a 3-year delay because it wasn't right the previous 2 years. And one of the things we wanted to rediscuss and invest in is our feeling about our art. Vivid Times Up and Staying, we were just animals about making sure everything was right. And it felt good, and it was the right lyric, and it was the right sound, and the song was the right length, and it was the right guitar solo, and it was the right producer, etc. And Shade went through a lot of changes, and it just wasn't right those other times. I'm glad it didn't come out sooner because it would not have sounded as good as the record that we have now. So I'm very happy with it. But art has that effect on the human existence. It's time periods kind of matter and don't matter. And in an industry now that has changed so much, it's difficult for us to realistically look at what the deadline really means. It is a business and we have to end, but as artists, you have to be happy with the product at the end of the day. It would be the same for making a shoe or a car or a new airplane engine, etc. It has to be right. Yeah. And Shade taught us that it wasn't right until the record arrived where it arrived, and I'm very happy with the way it turned out.
Okay. Now you're coming to Australia in December. You're playing here in Adelaide on the 17th of December. What else is happening in the world of Living Colour these days? Are you where else are you touring?
Right now we are coming down there. We had a few South American dates. We'll go back. We're looking to get back over to Europe because we're going to sort of relaunch Shade due to our change in the front office, new management and booking folks, etc. So we're going to reset that clock and do a relaunch, but we'll come back to the States and do a few shows. We're doing a few shows with Fishbone in the States, mostly West Coast, but we're looking to get back over to Europe in mid-2019, and then we'll get back to South America as well. So that's the immediate plan.
A couple of months ago, my wife and I went over to the US and we were away for a month. Now, we only stayed in 6 different places, but I said to my wife a couple of times, how do these bands do it where they're living out of a suitcase, playing a different city every night? How do you go?
I love it. It is a certain kind of a head. It's kind of like being a doctor and being on call and going home with your wife and your children and your phone goes off and you have a surgery you have to do. I mean, how do you do it? How do I do it? I love it. So for me, it's a normal life. But yes, I have to set myself to this normal life. And there are things that I do to make it comfortable. And I know I have a flight. I know what books I want to read. I know when I'm traveling around what hotels where I want to stay and how I want to stay. So for me, there's a method to the madness for me. But it doesn't bother me at all. I love the travel. I love being in a different place, in a different city, and be packing my suitcase, etc. It doesn't bother me at all. It's not for everyone. But for me, it's like new information. It would be like going into a bookstore every day or going into a record shop every day and being able to pull a few records out or a few books out. That's how I look at touring for me. The cities are always different. We're older now, and when the schedules are not what they used to be, so you can actually arrive in a city and see something and go to a museum or check out some art, etc. Whereas earlier on, it was the military where you arrived and you went to the hotel and you went to sound check and you played the show and you left the venue that night and you got back in the bus. And yes, that was much tougher. But those are the seeds you plant. So later on down the line, you can have a fan base built where you can come and stay 3 days in Adelaide or 2 days in Sydney or stay in Australia a month after your tour and just hang out.
Yeah. Okay.
That's that idea. But you're speaking to a guy who actually loves touring. So for me, it's just it's kind of a huge part of my life and in my existence. It has slowed down and it's become more focused now, and I can pick and choose. I wouldn't want to tour the way I used to tour. The industry's not built that way for it to exist, but I do like going out and touring. I love it.
Alter Bridge drummer Scott Phillips, I read a quote from him saying that you were the reason he began playing drums. What do you think when you hear praise like that?
Well, it's shocking, and you don't know who and what you're reaching out to when you're creating your art. And that kind of a comment, it reinvest in you doing your art honestly, because you never know who you're going to reach. You never know if you're going to turn somebody on or turn someone around or inspire someone. So it's very important that you put the art out the way you feel it is at its highest point. Where it has the most spiritual impact to you, and then the waves go where they go. But it's a compliment to hear that from him. We've had a few dates with them in Europe last year, and it was great to meet him and hang out with the guys. It's a great band, very gracious crew, and I enjoyed it. But to have someone say it, you don't always assume what you're doing reaches people to the point of them wanting to pick up sticks and actually pick up the instrument. That's fantastic news.
Awesome. Will, absolutely fantastic talking to you. Can't wait to see Living Colour here in Adelaide in December. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me today.
It's a pleasure, sir. Have a lovely day and look forward to come to the show and enjoy it. Thank you.